The Spanish Civil War, which took place from 1936 to 1939, had significant consequences for Spain and the wider world. Here are some of the key consequences. Francisco Franco's dictatorship. The nationalist faction, led by General Francisco Franco, emerged victorious, establishing a fascist dictatorship in Spain that lasted until Franco's death in 1975. Under Franco's regime, political dissent was suppressed and the basic freedoms were curtailed. Human casualties. The war resulted in a staggering loss of life, estimated to be between 500,000 and a million people. The exact number of casualties is uncertain since official data was manipulated. Civilians suffered immensely due to aerial bombings, executions, and reprisals by both sides. Repression and human rights abuses. The Franco regime engaged in widespread repression and human rights abuses, including mass executions, imprisonment, and censorship. Political opponents, trade unions, and regional identities such as Catalonia and the Basque Country were particularly targeted. Political and social divisions. The Civil War exacerbated political and social divisions in Spain. The conflict pitted the Republicans, a coalition of leftist and progressive groups, against the nationalists, supported by conservative, monarchist, and fascist forces. These divisions persisted long after the war and influenced Spanish politics for decades. Labor unions were dissolved. During Franco's regime, there was only one labor union, and it was under the government's control. Labor unions were seen as a characteristic of a communist nation, which resulted in their prohibition. Spain moved away from socialist and communist ideas, resulting in many years where workers did not receive assistance or improvements in their jobs. Since power was in the hands of employers, there were no means to improve their situation. International involvement and ideological impact. The Spanish Civil War drew significant international attention and involvement. It served as a proxy battleground for competing ideologies, with various foreign powers supporting either the Republicans, the Soviet Union and international brigades, or the nationalists, Germany and Italy. The war highlighted the deep ideological divisions in Europe and foreshadowed the larger conflict of the Second World War. Economic devastation. The war caused extensive damage to Spain's economy, infrastructure, and agriculture. The country faced food shortages and economic stagnation, which continued well into post-war years. The rebuilding process was challenging, and Spain needed to catch up to its European counterparts in terms of economic development. Exile and refugee crisis. The Civil War led to a massive exodus of Spaniards fleeing the conflict and the repressive Franco regime. It is estimated that over 200,000 Republicans sought refuge in other countries, mainly in France, Mexico, and South America. The diaspora had long-lasting effects on Spanish society and culture. Cultural and artistic impacts. The war had a profound impact on Spanish literature, art, and intellectual life. Many artists and writers, such as Pablo Picasso and Federico García Lorca, produced works that reflected the war's horrors and its impact on society. These cultural expressions served as a lasting testament to the human suffering and political upheaval of the time. All in all, the consequences of the Spanish Civil War were far-reaching, affecting not only Spain but also international politics and ideological divisions. The scars of the conflict continued to shape Spanish society long after the war ended and caused the nation to lag behind other European countries for many decades.